As usual, welcome to the channel, it's Joaco, and today I bring you my first impressions of Senua Saga Hellblade II. This is the follow-up to Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice from 2017, a game that I really enjoyed when it first came out. I was really looking forward to the new iteration of the franchise, so let's just talk about it. I've been playing the game through Game Pass, and this footage has been captured on PC. The game is also on Steam, so I'll try to make this video spoiler-free. I won't spoil any big story reveal or too much of the narrative. To give you some straight-up personal opinions, I like the game, but at the same time, I did not enjoy it as much as the first one. Let me explain. Even though I love the first one, this one feels like a lesser version of the first one when it comes down to storytelling and pacing. And that's what it makes it really hard for me to recommend to a person that didn't try the first one and was just super excited after watching some trailers or some of the gameplay. Even though the original had some flaws, it felt complete when it came down to the story and narrative. It was way more engaging in my opinion. Hellblade 2 has some incredible moments, some nice action and without a doubt amazing top-notch visuals, but at the end of the day I felt that it fell short from a narrative and gameplay perspective. The game doesn't build on the gameplay if you compare it to the original, and the combat and puzzle in some areas feel overall like a downgrade. From my point of view, it looks like they doubled down on some of the key aspects of the game, which at the end made it feel more sluggish. For example, now in the gameplay you have some long sequences where you need to walk, climb, or do something of the sorts that just take too much time, and while you do it, you are usually listening to Senua's voices and it just doesn't really feel interesting, not nearly as much as in the original. Obviously, for those people that didn't like the first game, there is no way I can recommend this one for you. It's just more of the same. If you dismiss it as a walking simulator, well yeah, it's understandable, but if you are one of the people like me who like the first one, so I would say you should give this one a try at some point, because it's not that bad, it's just better and worse in some aspects compared to the first one. For example, the combat. It feels hard and a little bit more engaging than the first one, but now you only fight one enemy at a time, which it was not the case with the first one, for example. Now I will give you a heads up about how the story starts based on the ending of the first game. This adventure takes place in Iceland, where Senua sets out to find the slavers that came upon her home in the first game. She wants to stop them at the source. As you may know, she deals with psychosis. She can listen to voices in her head, which serve as many different emotions like doubt, anger, encouragement, fear. But this time around, even though you are still having those mental battles from the first game involving the voices, you also start meeting real characters along your adventure. Their story ends up adding to Senua's background and slowly building up the character in a positive way. It feels like she's slowly evolving along the way, which is nice. The games feel very similar to the last one in some ways. The creepy but nice 3D audio, the atmosphere, the art direction, the performance of the lead actress is still amazing like it was in the first one, and the overall gameplay where you go along walking around and listening to the furies, the voices in her head, solving puzzles or engaging in combat. But when it comes to the puzzles, I would say I like what they did this time around. They improve upon their formula, since the puzzles from the first game turned repetitive toward the end, which was a drag honestly, but this one felt more thought out and adding to the whole psychosis experience. You still need to identify shapes in the environment, which, don't get me wrong, they're still quite easy, but overall they feel like they improve upon them. Now the real problem is what you hear while you're solving the puzzles. It's not very engaging like it was in the first one. I think that most people are going to resonate with the fact that as a player I want to be engaged, and there are some sequences that are very long when you're just pushing up on the joystick to continue a long cutscene of Senua just crawling or climbing without much reason or emotional meaning behind, or anything really to it. And then when you finally get to the cool puzzle, most of the time it's just not very interesting and I found it very disappointing. The combat feels very similar but also different. It's still simple and straightforward. You still need to time your blocks and dodges and use the slowdown time to take on enemies. There are more enemy types, which is always good to see, but on the downside you can only battle one enemy at a time compared to the previous game. Thus, after a while playing, you become very familiar and used to it and you know what to expect. So the challenge goes down dramatically, at least for me. It goes up a little bit every time a new enemy is introduced, but it doesn't make that much of a difference. Also, the parry window is different, it's a bit shorter. The enemies are a bit harder to read, positive point at least for me, but everything comes down to the player getting used to it after a while, so you end up learning quite fast and things, like I said, start to become easy and expected. Regardless, I still think the fights are cool. There are one or two scenes in particular that are extremely extremely memorable from obviously a visual standpoint, but also just the motion capture, choreography, movements, the character models, and the scene transitioning going on, the craftsmanship here. Even if you are vaguely interested in how video games are made, it's really impressive. Now, where the game truly shines this time around is with the visuals. The whole thing is nothing short of incredible and breathtaking. I played on PC at least 60 frames per second, and I was totally captivated by how good everything looked like. From landscapes to characters' faces, the details are amazing. The fights, the enemies, everything looked very realistic. If you're into using, photo mode, well, boy, you're gonna really have fun here. It's well crafted, and you sometimes cannot help just stopping and taking a screenshot. It's just amazing and very fun to watch. The game has some really cool moments as well that try to make up for all the more slower feeling ones. From a gameplay perspective, the good moments are worth checking out. I'm not gonna deny that, because they expand the story and how everything starts to be connected. The problem is that as soon as things start to get interesting, the game ends and you are left with a feeling of this is it, and which I cannot shake. I mean, without spoiling anything, the ending just came up very quickly and quite in an unexpected way, to be honest. Up to the moment when I was finishing the last narrative arc, I was thinking like, okay, so I guess we are gonna do something else here, and then out of nowhere it just ended, and I was like, what? I could have seen easily 2 or 3 more hours added, but overall you can finish it under 6 hours, give or take. I was left with a feeling that this journey was not as fulfilling as the first one. I guess everyone who plays the game is going to have a different opinion overall, but I just didn't take as much from the story as I did with the previous game, which is why I love it so much the first time around. This game feels like the first chapter or even half of the first game story. Anyways guys, these were my thoughts, and if you play the game, feel free to leave your comment and thoughts. Did you like Hellblade 2? Did you enjoy it as much as the first one? Let's have a chat in the comments. I'll be happy to hear your thoughts. For more content, a like really helps the channel. Subscribe because video games. Cheers!